Did going through this book and sort of exploring this hypothesis, like, did it change how you think about where you emphasize, where you invest, where you focus for the next 5, 10 years? Did it reignite a love of software in you?
The areas I might want to spend more time or kind of direct maybe other folks be like, oh, like you might want to pay attention to this kind of thing. I definitely feel in the same way early on in computing history, there was all these things kind of that people were playing with that now many decades, but now they're kind of at maturity. I like looking at the areas that are kind of in that same tradition, but also are still just weird, playful kinds of things. So it's like, so oftentimes those are the kind of things that are not anywhere near investment yet, but it's the people who are just kind of trying to rethink what software is, or what are the kinds of interfaces that we want, or how do we think about malleable software or democratization of code? Like, these are the kind of things that I just want more of. And I would certainly say I definitely have spent a lot more time thinking about the playful aspects of computing. Those are probably not necessarily the biggest outcomes for venture, but I do think that's where you find unbelievable passion around like what makes computing. So like, for example, there's this whole realm of like the poetic web, like the people are kind of viewing it like, oh, like there's the web that's like SaaS and like enterprise software and like big websites and things like that. But there's also just like people building these like weird, quirky little websites, and they kind of call it like the poetic web. And like this, it's much more playful and delightful. None of those things are huge businesses or like venture scale or anything like that. But it just shows that there's this other way of playing with these technologies. And it also shows that I kind of mentioned this, like the enterprise world or whatever, like the corporate world, which I kind of identify in the book as like this utilitarian stance towards technology. And then you have like the wondering stance, which is like the much more playful stuff. The thing is, it's not an either or. You kind of need both. Like whether it's the playful stuff, exciting people to get involved in it, and then eventually building the kind of things that are kind of more corporate, or the corporate stuff then provides that higher level foundation to make it that much easier to build the playful stuff. And so for me, I love finding that intersection where people are building tools that are useful for a wide variety of use cases, including whether it's like business use cases or just a wide variety, but still incorporate the sense of playfulness and kind of open-endedness. So like one example would be, and so like TL Draw, where they're kind of building this like infinite canvas, like as kind of like a drawing tool, and like prototyping, kind of like you can kind of draw and map things out. And so they're kind of building this as like, oh, like this is kind of this primitive that you can incorporate into whatever tool you want. So if you want to build like your version of Figma or whatever it is, kind of use TL Draw. But they are also just building all these wild and crazy AI experiments for drawing and art. And actually, there was one of them I got my kids hooked on, and they just found it amazing to play with. And so I love that intersection. And so maybe that's the area that really has like some really interesting potential that I want to explore more. And it's a little hard to kind of point to always or describe it fully, but that where kind of the utilitarian stance and the wondering stance meet, I think is where some of the most interesting things are happening.